Welcome to the Blowing Rock Core podcast, where we focus on local leaders building community through community-centered philanthropy, leadership development, and networking opportunities. This podcast series is brought to you by Granite Insurance. Granite Insurance has been an independent insurance agency since 1936 and is serving clients in all 50 states. Their primary goal is to empower their clients to be successful. Visit graniteinsurance.com to learn more.
Welcome to the Blowing Rock Core Local Leaders Interview Series podcast. Blowing Rock Core is a young professionals organization in affiliation with the Blowing Rock Chamber of Commerce. Our focus is on local leaders building community through leadership development, community-centered philanthropy, and networking opportunities. I'm your host, PJ Hennessy. On this podcast, we will sit down with the leaders of organizations throughout the high country that are setting the standard and what it means to be a leader and give their testimony on how they got to the position they are in today, and what they are doing to take their leadership and organization to the next level. Our guest today is the COO and executive partner of StrongLead LLC, as well as a great friend and mentor, Mr. Chad Hall. Chad, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
PJ, my pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, anytime I have a guest on, I'd like to just kind of hop in with the same first question for everybody to keep it consistent, but it's always a unique answer. And so I want to start off, when you were growing up, what did you want to be as in your childhood?
Honestly, PJ, I never asked that question.
Okay.
I guess I was the least reflective kid in the world. Okay. But I probably didn't really ask the question of what do I want to be when I grow up until I was a freshman in college. And at that point, it was like, well, maybe I want to be a teacher. And then immediately after that, so I was probably 18 years old or so, I had a sense of being called to serve the local church. But that was really the first time I ever had any sense of, I don't think I understood how life worked.
Okay. So you say it's interesting on the teacher part. Do you find that a lot of leaders kind of maybe start down that path? Like I think I've had a lot of other people I've talked to in the community kind of have that vision, and maybe it didn't go that way or whatnot. But do you think that's a kind of a natural fit for someone that wants to be in a leadership role, to be a teacher?
Not really. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm projecting my own thing here, but I think it was that's really, you think about who you have examples of in your life. Mm-hmm. You got a lot of examples of teachers, and, other than maybe what your parents do, or, what do you go to the dentist, once or twice a year? Mm-hmm. Who are you seeing in a professional setting? You're seeing a lot of teachers. Right. And so I think for a lot of people, whether they are on the path to being a leader or not, I think it's a little bit of a default when you have that first question of, oh no, what am I supposed to do? Well, Hey, I know what a teacher does. So Gotcha. Kind of gravitate to it.
Okay. Makes sense. Well, let's hop in the time machine with old Doc Brown here for a few minutes. So just give us a kind of a rundown. You mentioned getting into the church and into college your freshman year, but just kind of share from that point on what your leadership journey has looked like to where you are today.
Yeah. So I actually did end up serving a couple of churches and really didn't think about leadership until I was serving a church in, so I went to divinity school. That's what you do when you're going to prepare to go into being a pastor. And at the time I pastored a little church, I was going to divinity school, and a guy who eventually became a good friend of mine, who was also a fellow student, he asked me if I considered myself a leader. And I was like, nah, I'm a pastor. I was wearing the badge proudly. And he says, well, if you're a pastor, you're a leader. And he gave me some John Maxwell tapes. And I started thinking immediately about leadership and thinking of, myself as a leader. Eventually went into more kind of the academic side of things, and worked for a denomination for a while. Worked at a seminary teaching coaching, but got into coaching. And, for a couple of years, I was an internal coach for SAS, which is a software company in the Triangle area here in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And then, about 5 years ago, a little bit after I had relocated back here to Hickory, connected with actually somebody that I had trained as a coach years earlier, my business partner, Bruce Schrantz. and we started StrongLead. And I just always had this passion for leaders and thinking about leadership, and so yeah, that's kind of, I guess that's the Doc Brown very fast DeLorean short story.
Very good. Very good. Perfect. So, we look at who StrongLead is today, and you and StrongLead have had such a significant impact on my organization, Granite Insurance, and helped us grow exponentially, as we have seen in the last several years, as an organization, both on the individual side and overall as a group. So with our existing relationship, we've been able to partner together and really carry that presence of StrongLead into the high country, and developing out this partnership with the Blood and Rock Chamber, the overall high country community, through the core young professionals group. So, but, outside of that, 15, 20 people that we get every few months in the core organization that are taking part of the leadership roundtables, talk a little bit about what StrongLead is and who you are, what you represent, and what you can offer to business owners or young leaders in our high country community.
Yeah, we have a very simple kind of business proposition and or value proposition, and it is that as a company grows, and that could be a business or any organization. But as an organization grows, typically the leaders of that organization have grown in kind of the technical aspects of leading a business and not the people aspects. So it kind of creates this stretch where the technical stuff has outpaced the people stuff. And the larger the organization, the more all the problems begin to bubble up to the leaders. And they realize, oh, I don't have the people skills to deal with this, or I haven't really developed a team of leaders and a team of managers to handle problems at a lower level in the organization. And so what we do is we come in, we're highly dedicated to helping the company grow, because Bruce and I both, and our other owner, Ethan, we have a really kind of deep belief that as the company grows, it's going to require the people to grow. And so we're going to help you kind of as business consultants help your company grow, but then more on the personal development, leadership coaching side, we're going to come alongside you and help you grow to become the kind of person necessary kind of to lead a company that's the size of the one you're becoming. And so that gets into all sorts of leadership growth conversations around, communication or integrity or confidence, and the list goes on and on.
Sure. Absolutely. So I know you guys work with a lot of companies, especially a little more so down in the Catawba Valley area, but you are expanding up into the high country. So talk a little bit about, how you have to take a different approach, because I don't want an organization up here. The demographic is so much different than what you might see in a huge manufacturing firm, or, the larger companies that are present in the Catawba Valley, whereas Blow and Rock and Boone are more your niche businesses, your, professional based, tourism based, hospitality. So talk about how that just lends itself to a different approach in, discussions and helping develop out leaders across that broad spectrum of types of companies.
Yeah, and we really do have a broad spectrum. Our only real criteria is that they have local business making or local decision making. And so we work with everything from companies of several thousand, really down to companies of 2 or 3 people. We just really want whoever we're working with, they're the decision makers. And again, so whether that's a large manufacturing organization or whether it's, a real estate group of a handful of people. And so the shift, the thing that's different is really how many people within an organization we are working with, and the amount of team development that we're doing. And so if it's a small, locally owned, locally operated, maybe a handful of employees, in that environment, man, everybody's really got to be on the same page. There has to be a lot of trust. And so what we do is come in and really develop, again, not just a vision for how the company could grow in terms of maybe its revenue, but also a vision for what's going to need to happen internally for that company to grow in their relationships. And a lot of times the small locally owned businesses, they don't feel like they've got the resources to kind of compete, with the big boys, so to speak. And, we're coming in as more of a thought partner to help them recognize, well, they probably have some advantages that they don't realize. And so sometimes just helping them get, I guess, kind of off the dance floor and up in the balcony and kind of seeing things from a different perspective is really helpful. And so, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest. And again, I wouldn't necessarily say that's a distinction between maybe the Catawba Valley and the High Country. It's probably more of a distinction between a larger company and a smaller one.
Sure. Okay. Makes sense. And in that realm, you guys have such a broad spectrum of programs and services that you offer to businesses, and even, maybe the smaller individuals that are maybe only have 2 or 3 people, but they're experiencing growth. So talk a little bit more about, if they're listening to this and they say, I want to give StrongLead a call. We talk about coaching and development, but give a little more detail on exactly what you guys are offering to those potential into businesses.
Yeah, what we would prefer to do with every client. Now, that's what we prefer. It's not necessarily what we do with every client, but our kind of go-to is we want to work with what we call the top level team. So the top level team is either the ownership or it's the people who are making the decisions, which maybe sometimes is a mix of owners and high level employees. And we want to work with that top level team every month as a team. And so as a team, we're going to help them. We have a process called the same page, very creatively named, because we're trying to get them on the same page on things like their mission, their values, where they want to be in 5 years, what's the strategy for getting there, and those sorts of things. So we're going to work with the team to get them all on the same page, really aligned. And then we're also working with each of the members of that team individually every month to help them develop and solve some of the challenges that are unique to them as a person and as a leader. So that's what we prefer to do. Meet with the team once a month, meet with individuals once a month. And sometimes we're meeting with other people within the company once a month for the executive coaching. But the somewhat different flavors that it takes on, sometimes we're going in and working only with a particular layer of the company, especially if it's of a certain size. And then other times we're going in and kind of attacking sort of hotspot issues in the company. So, in today's world where a lot of businesses have hired millennials and Gen Zers, I don't know what they're called.
Right.
The Gen Z population. Yeah. They're like, what do we do with these people? They don't show up on time. They don't seem very motivated. And so that kind of going in and coaching, a lot of times not just the millennial, but also the millennial's manager and how they need to be managed differently. And then we also have a program that is more of a public program. I know Granite Insurance has participated in this, called the High Performance Leader Program. And so it's a cohort of people from different companies that come together once a month for 3 hours of training. And then each of the participants also gets one-on-one executive coaching every month as a part of the program. And so all these kind of different ways of coming alongside and developing both, kind of 3 layers: the entire business, the key teams within the business, and then the leaders or kind of key players within the business.
Okay, perfect, Chad. So, and one other element that you guys have incorporated in, Catawba County, Caldwell County, and bringing it into Blowing Rock and Watauga County in the past couple of years is that leadership roundtable that we have done 3 or 4 times in Blowing Rock this year. So, people are now getting a better idea of what StrongLead can offer and help their organization. But how to let's just deep dive a little bit on the roundtable specifically and try to say, okay, if I'm hearing it, it sounds interesting. How does that roundtable differ, but also provide value for those organizations that maybe coming to one of our next events?
Yeah, well, one of the big differences is it's free, which is always great.
Sure.
And this kind of gets to one of our kind of core values. I mean, we are a business. We want to, be profitable, that kind of thing. But really, at the heart of who we are is we just like investing in people, and so the roundtables are a way for us to do that. And so what we do is about every other month here in Catawba County, Caldwell County, and now we also have expanded into Burke County. We carry a gun when we go there. That's a joke, by the way.
Right.
If
they may or may not be getting down into that audience, so I think we're safe.
Yeah. But anyway, we go in and we provide 90 minutes of just leadership development. And in our minds, we want to think, hey, for no cost, you're going to be able to come and get 90 minutes of what you would otherwise have paid a couple $100 for. And we're going every time we address some topic related to leadership. Not necessarily do you have to be the owner or like the leader of the business, but you've got some sort of role of influence. And so it's going to be everything from, leveraging personality or communication, dealing with conflict, a variety of different topics. And then we really like that we do that in a public setting where you're learning and growing and with other people. So you kind of get a twofer. You're not only getting great content that you can apply, you're getting to meet some people, and that really is kind of a roundtable experience where you're not only learning with other people, you're oftentimes learning from them. So it's highly interactive.
Yeah, I know for me personally, being able to bring the roundtables into Blowing Rock this past year for the 3 or 4 events that we've had, and we'll continue into 2023. I think the biggest value is just, it opens my eyes to how other people approach leadership, because you have so many different personalities that you can get into a room and you can meet people and you can learn from them and understand them. And it gets you thinking in ways about how you handle your own leadership journey as an individual or in your organization, and open your eyes to taking, considering a different approach if necessary, or just saying, hey, it's not leadership is not one size fits all. It's there's a lot of right ways to do it, and there's a lot of wrong ways to do it, but there's not one right way or one wrong way. And the benefit I've gotten from those roundtables is just meeting people and helping them, but also just hearing their own style and their twist on what they think makes a good or bad leader even. So I definitely appreciate you guys bringing that up to our community and continuing to grow that into next year and beyond. So
we've loved doing it, and we've ended up connecting with a few of the businesses up there. In fact, I was just up Blowing Rock earlier this week working with one of the businesses that's become a client. And anytime I can get up to the high country, my car knows the way. Let's just put it that way.
Right. Yeah, it's a good place to be when it's not negative temperatures that we're going to be seeing this coming weekend. But it's a beautiful place to live, a fantastic community. And like they say, it's just different on the mountain. So we certainly appreciate you guys expanding up here and continuing to grow and help our community out. So Chad, let's kind of bring the conversation full circle. Anytime I have a guest on, I want to end with 2 items of discussion, and just kind of looking back to where you are today compared to, freshman year in college, Chad. What is the one thing you wish you had not known at that point or had done differently, for the people that are in your shoes, maybe deciding what's their next path is going to be, from where you were at the beginning of your career?
Oh, and I'll kind of apply this to just my 20s. I don't know a lot that I wish I had known, but probably one of the things that's really stood out to me, and just for everybody, I know I probably sound like I'm only 35, but I'm 51, to give you some perspective.
Well, I thought you were
I wish
39,
in my 20s,
so that's good.
you were aiming for. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'll send you $20 later today. But gosh, in my 20s, I wish I would have been okay not knowing. It's interesting. I was in leadership positions since my senior year of college. Again, in the church mostly during those years, and I felt like I had to have all the answers. And I think if I had taken a more open and curious and being okay not having the answers, I probably would have developed a lot sooner. Probably would have been a stronger leader much earlier.
Perfect. Yeah, I think in my position now, I have a unique role within the agency, but I was also at a point in my life while going through college where I was put into a management position, and the biggest challenge was, seeing people that didn't necessarily respect me because of my age being in a leadership position. But just learning like, hey, that's okay. I have to earn it. I can't just come in and assume my title is gonna do that for me. So I can certainly relate to knowing that, hey, it's okay to take your lumps and learn from it, because it makes you a better person in 5, 10, 15 years later. So Chad, and at that point, just, if you could ask everyone listening to this podcast or the businesses listening to this podcast, to take one action that would really make a difference for them. And it doesn't have to be call StrongLead, or whatever the case may be, but what would you ask?
I didn't think of that. That is a pretty good option.
That's pretty straightforward there. I don't know if we can use that one. But what would you ask for individuals to just make their personal lives a better place, their business a better place, the community be a better place?
Yeah, I have drank deeply from the well of Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So I'll give an answer that kind of comes off of one of his mantras. And it is that all things are created twice, one in the mind and then in reality. And so the action I would invite folks to take is just in your mind, paint a picture of what you want the coming year to look like. And there's not going to be a better investment of maybe 30 minutes to an hour than you just sitting down with, maybe with a piece of paper, not your computer, probably a piece of paper, and just thinking and jotting down some ideas. What do you want this year to look like? And it's amazing that when you have a mental picture, how much, I'm not going to say it's automatic, but it's just so much smoother and more likely that reality, that picture becomes a reality. And so, take time, reflect, envision, and that you only gave me one action, but I think that's all one action.
Right. Yeah, it's very all encompassing. And I think that's something that everyone needs to hear is, every time you get to a new year, you get that fresh start, and just that feeling of renewal and a chance to tackle your goals, meet your objectives, and just be successful going forward. So Chad, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and share your leadership journey, giving our listeners an in-depth look at StrongLead and the opportunities you're giving to the organizations in our local community. We'll certainly be talking with you again soon, and keep an eye out for the next time we're able to schedule our leadership roundtable that'll be coming up soon here in 2023. So this will wrap up this episode of the Core Local Leaders Podcast. Thank you to our producer, Chris Faber, and our sponsors, the Blood and Rock Chamber of Commerce and Granite Insurance. This is PJ Hennessy. Have a safe and happy holiday and a happy new year.